So I think what me and Quaker always asked this to our guests, like when we had the academy players on, we were like, who are the best players you played with? I suppose as a coach, what we want to know is who are the best players that you've worked with or had the opportunity to work close with?
It's a challenging one because when I was thinking about this, there's two ways of looking at it. Now, there's a lot of coaches who will go out there and start like reeling off a list of different names. They'll be like, oh, listen, look for this player, they're upcoming, look for that player, they're upcoming. But it's challenging because, again, when you link it back to the talent, motivation and opportunity, there's been some quality players that I've worked with from a really young age. But actually, do you know what? They're not going to go on to make it. And potentially you're looking at people like I don't know, I haven't worked with him, by the way, but like your Ravel Morrisons, where, you know, people think, wow, what a player, but then they actually don't go on to hit the heights that they can. So for me, because I heavily focused only the last, say, 3 or 4 years now, I've actually come out of the foundation phase, which is 5 to 11-year-olds. For me, I really enjoy implementing those key foundations and the first steps of people enjoying football. Now, one experience or one example I can give is a player who currently plays for Chelsea under 12s. And I personally believe, his name's Calvin, I won't go into his second names, purposes, but I believe that he will go on to make it. And I think it's only a short amount of time. Now, I'll never forget this experience. I used to run a centre over in Lewisham, and I used to go into his school, and he had never played football before in his life. And, you know, I think the background he came from, his parents were obviously, well, not necessarily weren't that keen in football, but I don't know if they was aware of all the opportunities. Anyway, cut long story short, got this phone call and he was like, hello? I was like, hello? He was like, Coach Dave? I was like, hello? You alright? Who's this? He had called me up. He's like 5 or 6 years old and he had called me up. He said, can you speak to my dad, please? Because I want to come along to your football session. Anyway, cut long story short, 5 or 6 years later, I was still coaching throughout all that time. And then sadly, the centre that I had to close down. So I was like, well, look, I can't, especially because of, like I said, he had ability, he was a great learner, great listening, great personality and character. I was like, I can't just let him stop there. So basically what I ended up doing was sending him to a local grassroots team. And he went to go and play for the grassroots team for, I think, 1 or 2 seasons, got signed by Chelsea. And, you know, like I said, now he's in their under 12 teams. And like I said, I personally do believe that he will go on to make it, as a player. Now, in terms of other sort of potential names, I mean, you know, I've worked with thousands of kids. Like, if I'd be lying if I said that I knew all of the different names, but I believe that at some point, like quite a lot of the players that I've worked with have gone on and are now, like I said, at that under 12, under 11, under 13, under 14 age groups at like your Chelseas, your Charltons, your Crystal Palaces. And it's down to them as individuals whether or not they go on to make it. But in terms of some juicy content, in terms of names, like what's quite interesting is over the last few years, and it's happened over the last 2 years actually, as part of one of my roles, I'm involved within the FA and they sort of do content and I help to design the content, and it's for purposes of adverts. And over the last 2 years, I've worked with Lucy Bronze, Harry Kane, and most recently Peter Crouch. And
legend.
Do you know what's like, honestly, so for me, like again, I'll kind of go into it in a bit, but like some of the people who follow me on my coaching page, it's pinch me moments. I never get like too big for my boots. Like these people, I'm like, like just trying to, like these are people that I've watched growing up. And to be in the same environments as them, it's crazy to think that, and like to think that I'm actually putting these things in. But like the 3 of them, Harry Kane, Lucy Bronze and Peter Crouch, such nice people. Like, so it was part of that. It was, I had to design some content and some sessions which they'd be doing, some fun type activities which were being put out for children to do, but I had to coach them and show them how to do these activities. And do you know what? Honestly, unbelievable experiences. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a lot easier coaching these 3 because of the ability that they have. Level, but yeah, like such great experiences. And I think on each occasion, I think I got to spend about an hour with Harry Kane, an hour and a half with Lucy Bronze, who's just recently obviously been named obviously FIFA Women's Best Player, and obviously Peter Crouch, like you said. Honestly, I don't think I've ever smiled and laughed as much throughout that whole time. But yeah, unbelievable characters and obviously unbelievable opportunities to be able to work with them. I'd love to be able to say that I helped people like Lucy Bronze get that award, but I can't take any of the credit for it. But yeah, unbelievable experiences to work with players like that.
Well, circling back to when you talked about working with people at the foundation level, Webb and Jamie have done this quite a bit, and we asked people, especially people who've played previously, who are the best players you played with, and we were expecting them to name the names first of all. So if we know that they played Raheem Sterling, we expect them to say Sterling or Sancho or whatever, but they always tend to start with a name that we wouldn't know, people that haven't made it. And for one reason or another, they haven't made it, but they swear by the fact that when they were 12, when they were 13, they were amazing players. So when you work with players at such a young age, what is the main stumbling block that will prevent somebody who's got such a high ceiling of ability from actually making it? What's the main factor that kind of prevents people from making it?
I think, again, it boils down to the opportunity element. So, again, like I said, some of these people don't get the opportunity to go and play. Like, when that kid who's, like I said, now at Chelsea, you know, potentially, so again, I'm not, he's come into contact with so many coaches, I'm not claiming anything, but I gave him the opportunity to come to these weekly centres. He weren't doing nothing else. And then I gave him the opportunity to go on and play for this grassroots club. Now, without linking them and putting them into touch with these grassroots clubs, and without being able to get them into an environment which, you know, I was coaching with him weekly, would he have been able to come on and develop leaps and bounds as the player he is now? The other thing which I'd say as well is just life. Honestly, life catches up on us so quickly. And I remember I coached for a little while a under-14 girls team. Now, listen, I can coach across various different age groups, boys or girls, but honestly, the most challenging situation I've ever encountered, because at the age of 14, these girls, we had girls going through puberty. We had some of the girls who wanted to make it as footballers and would do anything that they could to make it and put in all the hours of training. We had some of the girls who came along because they just wanted to be sociable, and mix in with their friends. We had some of the girls who potentially were still there because of their parents. And when you get to this like 13, 14, 12 even age group, life hits you. And whether that's through your own life where you're becoming, like I said, you want to go out on a Friday night and you want to go out and play out with your friends rather than going to football, or whether it's parent pressure and they just turn around and say, you know, like I spoke to Nigel Reo-Coker the other day, and he said that he comes from an African background and his parents were like, you know, football isn't a career. Like, you don't want to go into football.
You're preaching to the choir. My brother played at West Ham before, and my parents said the same thing to him. They offered him a scholarship, but it was like, with no guarantee of first team football. My dad was like, that's not good enough, and turned down the scholarship, which is absolutely insane to me. But from different backgrounds, like I say, life just gets in the way.
Yeah, and you have to make that decision, and it's tough because, you know, you don't want to live your life with no regrets, but, you know, if you put all your eggs in one basket, as to say, and I think it links back to the bit where you said about school. If I look back at a younger me or a younger person now, I would always say, try and get two wings behind your bone almost. You know, try and keep that football element, yes, and maybe even get a qualification in sport or football, whatever you want to do. But if there's something else as well, which you can just be doing on the side, whether it be work or whether it be qualification or education, do that as well, because it hits you. And at least, say for example, in those examples you mentioned there, even if you did take the scholarship and it doesn't quite work out, you've got something then to fall back on.